Welcome to Trainspotting. In this episode, the first preserved line in the country and still operating exclusively on steam, I visit the Bluebell Railway. Mark track tests the new Meridians to see how modern rolling stock compares to his favourite Mark Is. And we both travel to Scotland. Mark to the romantic and tranquil surrounds of the Jacobite line, whilst I brave the elements to help paint a little bit of the Forth Bridge. This is the Bluebell Railway, nestling deep in the heart of Sussex. It was one of the first preserved lines to come into operation, and it prides itself on being the only all-steam railway in the country. Barry Coward, you're press officer here at the Bluebell Railway. An all-steam railway needs the locos to go with it, doesn't it? You've got loads of them.
We were lucky. We were the first steam railway, preserved steam railway in 1960 we started. And in those days, we could still get from British Railways locomotives that were coming out of service. The result is that we've been able to get a unique collection.
This is the Beauty Barry 73082.
This is one of our larger engines. It's a BR standard based on old London Midland Scottish design known as Black Fives. It's named Camelot. We have a brother to it going out today to run the train. It's the next engine along here.
Right.
It's being prepped now for the train which will go out later.
I look
and
forward
we have
to that.
A little dock tank called Normandy, which will be prepared for today's shunt. It was originally built for use in Southampton docks, and the idea was that it was designed to haul very large trains. You'll see it has very large cylinders, so it has a lot of power, can pull lots of wagons at very low speed.
When you're an all-steam railway, everything has to be moved by steam. Not just the daily passenger services, but all the tools and materials that are required for regular maintenance and track work. Normandy was off to Horsted Keynes, the next station up the line, where it was needed to move some carriages. This gave me a chance to learn some of the black arts of shunting from Bob Howick.
There's these three coaches here. We've got to put them all together.
Yep.
And we've got to bring that furthest one down so it goes over the pit.
Right.
The buckeye coupling has to be raised. These are about 96 pounds, so you have to swing them just about right. This hand signal means the driver's got to come towards you.
Right.
And that means stop. And that means I'm going in between. Now we're going to put this vehicle so it's right over the pits.
Right. And all these hand signals, are they standard?
All standard hand signals, yeah. Everybody knows what they mean. Okay, away you go, Job.
So whilst Bob and Normandy moved on to shunt some wagons and another siding, I continued with my trip along the Bluebell line. So this is Horsted Keynes station then, Barry?
Yes, we kept it in a period of the Southern Railway in, say, the late 20s, early 30s. And this station has been used in so many films and used at so many other stations, Monte Carlo, Charing Cross, you name it.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Well, the obvious question is, why was it called the Bluebell line?
Well, if you come here in the end of April and early May, you'll see why this is called the Bluebell line. It's absolutely awash with them.
And the line itself, when did that start?
The line opened in 1882. They started constructing it under the Lewis and East Grinstead Railway, which went bust, and the London and Brighton and South Coast took it over and opened the line.
What was the line primarily used for in those days?
It was built to get farm produce to London, dairy produce and fruit and vegetables to the London markets. And the result of that is that stations tend to be between villages rather than at villages, because they were built for the convenience of farmers.
Right, and when did it start to go into decline?
After the First World War, road haulage really got going, and the farmers found it more convenient to have a truck call at a farmyard and take it straight to the market. And so the railway gently declined until finally in 1958 it ceased, or at least People thought it would cease.
I was going to say, because it wasn't very long before people thought, hang on, we've got to save this.
Yes, there was. There was a meeting in 1959, local people, and the park between Sheffield Park and Horsley Canes opened in 1960. It was the first preserved steam railway in the country.
Well, we've now left Horsley Canes. What's the next part of the line? What are we travelling
We're now
on
climbing quite steadily, 1 in 75, to a tunnel at Sharpthorne, which is the peak of the line, and then we'll go downhill to a little country station called Kingscote, which is really in the middle of nowhere.
So what's the magic of the Bluebell? What do people that come on this enjoy most, do you think?
Well, I've worked here as a booking clerk, and people come at the window and say, what happens here? And I say, you're here for time travel. It's a journey into history. It's a wonderful experience, particularly for the old and young.
Nostalgia for those that remember steam and education for those that don't.
Absolutely.
In 2001, Midland Main Line put in an order of £220 million to Bombardier in Bruges to build them a brand new fleet of passenger express trains. And this is the outcome, the Class 222 Meridians. How pleased are you with this fleet? I mean, we're still in the initial stages. It's only been since May that they were introduced to the timetable. How pleased are you?
You're almost reluctant to say it, but it has been a fantastic introduction. They have run superbly well. You're always nervous because, yes, there is a base to this train that is the Voyager, but as Bombardier will tell you, about 80% of everything under the floor has changed. So effectively it's a new train, and it's very unusual to get a new train that's going to work first time out of the box. The Midland Main Line Meridian has.
So what subtle differences would a passenger perhaps not notice that you have made to the train?
Well, the difference is that passengers have already noticed this, that we have actually increased the headroom quite considerably on the Meridians compared to the Voyagers. We've taken some of the lights out of the roof space and we've actually positioned them in the overhead luggage racks, and that throws light up. And for two reasons: very practical in terms of we've taken some mechanics out of the roof, and aesthetically actually having light bounce off the roof creates a greater feeling of space.
Because you also involve the staff who are going to be working on the trains as well to come up with what they would like to be working with.
Yeah.
What do they put in?
It has been absolutely critical to have our people involved all the way through. After all, they're the best people to actually tell you how the train works. So we have involved drivers, we've involved train managers, we've involved customer hosts who are actually using trains on a day-to-day basis for very practical things like delivering tea and coffee, delivering food, and actually driving it. We modify things actually at their request. So there's some very, very subtle differences on this train compared to any other train. The galley layout is superb. It is all logical. There are no crossovers between staff and chef. The doors, for example, they also have a little push button located in the floor, so that if one of our team are going through with tea and coffee, they simply kick the button and the door opens. There's no fiddling around.
What changes have you made for the drivers in the cab?
But there's some very subtle changes in terms of moving the train management system, so it's just out of eye shot. The speedometer, the way it was actually sitting on the dashboard, was at such an angle, when the sun shone on it, you couldn't actually see the dials clearly. So what we did was we literally just tilted it a couple of millimeters, and that meant the drivers could see it perfectly. So it was a range of very small, very subtle things that we did that make the operation of the train a lot better and a lot more easy for the driver. And of course they have got all the new technical information systems that are up there with the train management system that allows them to actually know what is going on in the train without having to get out the cab and wander down to the power plant.
So let's take a look at the interior of one of these Meridians. The first thing you notice when you board the train is space. This vestibule has a lot of it. And the lights as well. It lights the way as you come in. You may have heavy cases with you. You know exactly where you're going. I like the curvature round towards this particular carriage with the big chunky handles, the lighting behind the handles, and of course access for wheelchair passengers. Now then, take a look at this. It's got baby changing facilities. It's big, it's bright, it's clean. And of course there's disabled access as well. A first class carriage then on one of these Class 222 Meridians. The first thing you notice, plenty of luggage space here, the electronic indicator boards here, and closed circuit television at both ends of the carriage. Now as we walk down the carriage, I like the feeling of space. It's got an airline feel to it with 2 seats on one side and 1 seat on the other. Big, nicely ergonomically designed seats with chunky armrests. I do like a good chunky armrest, and plugs for laptops and mobile phones. Little added extra bonus as well, these electronic reserved indicators here, which means that you can reserve a seat right up until the last minute. Also, glass, nice little added extra on the luggage rack so you can see up and see your luggage. And this is standard class. Again, a good sense of space, well-lit carriages with two seating arrangement here. You've also got the plugs for laptops and mobiles. That's just not for first class. Table, of course, for drinks and any food as well. But again, I just can't convey the sense of space that one of these carriages has.
We really feel as if we have pushed the envelope. At the end of the day, we're still in a steel tube. We still need to put seats in it, but we can create a customer environment that customers actually really do start to appreciate. And once we have the whole fleet in, I hope it'll actually become an example of how you can actually introduce a new fleet of trains successfully that operates punctually, operates well, and actually creates a fantastic customer environment.
Now, I like to think I'm a dab hand at DIY. Only last weekend I was scraping and sanding and priming and glossing, and that was just my garden gate. But I don't think I'm ready to tackle this yet. The Forth Rail Bridge, one of the grandest steel structures ever built, and the longest paint job in history. The Forth Rail Bridge was opened in 1890, and with spans of up to 520 metres, remains one of the largest cantilever bridges ever built. Sir William Harrell was responsible for its revolutionary design and for overseeing its construction. Predating the development of industrial welding techniques, the bridge had to be bolted together using a staggering 6 million hot rivets, and there were other engineering difficulties that had to be overcome, as Bob Gardner explains.
Well, the foundations were the biggest challenge because they had to be sunk well below high water level, about 70 feet down. The only techniques available were using what they call caissons, which are like large cylinders. They were built out of wrought iron plates. They were then floated out and, when in position, allowed to sink to the bed of the Firth. The innovative part in material terms was it was to be built in steel rather than wrought iron or cast iron. The amount of steel in it, incidentally, is about 52,000 tonnes. At the moment, it can carry heavy trains up to over 1,400 tonnes. There's 180 trains a day use this, 90 in each direction, passenger trains, about 20 freight trains. So in all, there's over 5 million tonnes of freight carried over it and about 3 million passengers each year.
Because of its strategic importance, protecting the fabric of the bridge from the hostile elements of the North Sea has been a constant battle, and the term painting the Forth Bridge has become synonymous with the never-ending job. However, modern paint technology is now enabling Network Rail to implement the first major facelift in the bridge's history. But before I could take a look at this firsthand, I had to overcome a problem that hasn't gone away: how to get onto the bridge in the first place. Fortunately, Ian Heath, the bridge manager, was on hand to guide me along the rather precarious 800-yard walk from the southern end out to the first of the 3 cantilevers. Well, Ian, we're out on the bridge now. I mean, the sun's out, but my God, that wind's blowing, isn't it?
Isn't it just? It's a major disturbance to us. The wind is a howler today.
Well, it's not a place I want to be stuck out of preference. I mean, what are you doing out here? What's the purpose of this?
Well, we're here carrying out probably the most major refurbishment that's ever been done on the bridge. We're trying to put a new coating system on that'll stand the test of time, maybe up to 25 years.
Right, so take us through the paint system then. What are you using?
Well, fundamentally, we're using a grit with air, which forces the grit at about 100 psi to actually remove all the old paints and bring the surface up to this polished, bright, clean steel surface. We then apply a zinc phosphate primer, which is this yellow one. On top of that, we apply a glass flake epoxy system, which was originally developed for the North Sea oil rigs. And on the top of that, we apply an acrylic urethane finish as the finished article.
Okay, that's what it looks like before. This over here?
That is the finished article. This is an indication of how well we can actually surface finish the bridge.
And have you got an army of workers here with paintbrushes up and down all the time?
We actually do a bit brushing
Yeah?
here and there, yeah. We brush round about the rivets, we brush along the edges, but the main system actually applied by airless spray.
That stuff looks lethal though. I mean, when it comes off, you've got to be careful where it goes, I guess, haven't you?
We do. It is lead-based paint, it's not nice stuff, so we need to encapsulate and catch every piece of it on the way off and dispose of it carefully.
I mean, it's a major undertaking. This
This baby is a national monument, quite apart from being part of the railway. So it must be kept for posterity apart from anything else.
Ian, we're trackside now. It's a bridge, but let's not forget it's here to carry trains. How does your work impact on the trains?
Well, I'm glad to say our work doesn't impact on trains at all. If anything, the trains impact on us.
Okay, well, I've got to say this wind is really getting up now. I mean, do you work in all conditions? Are they working now, the boys?
No, this is exactly the way that you would basically stop working. And right now the boys will be in a bothy taking shelter.
Any chance we can join them?
I think we should go right now.
Let's go. Well, the bridge has been here for a long time. How is what you're doing going to help prolong that?
Well, basically the bridge has been here for 114 years, and I don't see any reason why, with the paint system we're putting on, that it shouldn't be here for at least the same again.
Now here's a question for you. Where is Britain's most scenic mainline railway? Kyle of Loch Alsh, Settle and Carlisle, the Cambrian coastline, or Brixton to Penge East? For most people, it's the 42 miles of the West Highland line between Fort William and Mallaig. And to add to its beauty, it's the only part of the main line left in Britain with a regular steam service. The daily steam service is provided by the West Coast Railway Company and is scheduled to leave Fort William at 10:20 in the morning. But the loco is on the platform for an hour or so before departure, giving ample opportunity for passengers to take in the steam experience and to soak up the atmosphere. The morning sleeper from Euston provides a connecting service, arriving on the adjacent platform just in time. And it was amid this busy hubbub that I met James Shuttleworth, Chief of Operations.
Today we're being hauled by ex-LNER K1 62005, which is the last surviving member of the class. This locomotive was built in Glasgow in 1949 and was one of the class that saw out steam up here at the end of steam in the early 60s on the West Highland line.
Now, what about the crew who work these locomotives? Whereabouts do you get them from? Are they the old guys who used to work the line?
The crew who we have, they've all had experience of steam. We're always looking to bring in newer, younger men. It's keeping the old skills alive and passing it on to the next generation, if you like.
Well, I suppose when you've got Lord of the Isles pulling a rake, it's got to be Mark 1 stock, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a later build Marks 1 stock. They were built in the early 60s. You get a good number of people on board and you get good views. We find them absolutely ideal for this sort of service. It's what people remember. It's a bit of a throwback, bit of nostalgia, but at the same time, it does the job very effectively.
What are the highlights, would you say, having travelled on the line so many times?
Well, there are many features on the line and views to see. There are lots of different things which are unusual, unique. I mean, you're starting at Fort William at the foot of Ben Nevis. You're running alongside Loch Eel. I mean, it's a line of contrasts. I suppose if you wanted to ask me which was my favourite, I think it's probably Glenfinnan. Glenfinnan is it's a magical spot. Looking across the Glenfinnan monument from Bonnie Prince Charlie, where he raised his standard in 1745, looking down Loch Shiel and into the distance. It's pure West Highlands, it's magic.
So this is Glenfinnan, where the train stops for about 20 minutes. Gives everybody a chance to have a cup of tea, stretch their legs, or visit the museum. Helga Hennis, you're a trustee of the museum here at Glenfinnan. When was the line built?
The line was finished on 1st of April 1901, which was almost a year ahead of schedule.
Because it must have been really difficult to build. How many men worked on the railway trying to build it?
Well, they say around about 3,500 navvies.
And Concrete Bob, Sir Robert McAlpine, famous for using concrete, he was the original contractor, was he?
He was the contractor, yes, working in partnership with the engineer of the line.
Because a lot of the structures along the line are made of concrete, aren't they?
Yes, most famously the viaducts. There's 5 of them along the line here, and obviously the Glenfinnan Viaduct is the most famous of them. It's the longest one and perhaps the most elegant one.
So what's the legend of this horse and cart then?
Well, local legend has always had it that buried in one of the piers in Glenfinnan Viaduct there was a skeleton of a horse and the remains of a cart. Now, at the centenary of the line, the Institute of Civil Engineers did a radar scan to find out whether this was the truth, and they found nothing in Glenfinnan Viaduct, but they did find one in the Loch Nanuam Viaduct. So the legend was true, just they had it slightly wrong.
Wrong viaduct. So James, we've just left Glenfinnan. We seem to be coasting down now. What can we expect for the rest of the line?
Well, we just passed the summit of the line, which is about 1.5 miles after Glenfinnan, and the scenery changes now. We're heading towards the coast, and when we get to Arisaig, we will be actually on the west coast. We'll come right way across. Arisaig is also the westernmost station on the British Isles.
So finally, James, how would you sum up the West Highland line?
It's a line of great contrasts. It's fantastic scenery, and you've got stunning views. It's mountains, it's moors, it's loch, and then you end up at the shore. And being on the steam train just adds to it.
Hang on, isn't that a Class 37 over there?
I think it is.
Yeah, let's have a quick look at it actually.
Yeah, me too.
And I need to take a photo of it just for my records.
Oh yeah, me too.
I'm just going for a pee.